Exponents. Okay, 5 times 5 times 5 can be written using an exponent. 5 to the third power. 5 is the base. 3 is the exponent. Okay, when you write it this way, it's written in exponential form. When you simplify it or evaluate it or solve it, you get this answer. Sometimes they ask you to write something in exponential form. That means with exponents. Okay, here's two examples. It says write in exponential form. So we're going to take the -4, leave it in the parentheses, and put to the 4th power because that's 4 times. -4 times -4 times -4 times -4. This is how you write that in exponential form. And then on the second one, we're going to write the 6 down to the 3rd power because 6 times 6 times 6, and a down to the 3rd power. That's written in exponential form. If it just said to evaluate, I would go ahead and work it out and get an answer. If it said to simplify, I would work it out and get an answer. I'm only leaving it here because it says exponential form. Now, the directions have changed. Now it says evaluate. That means I want a final answer. So I have to take this 3, which remember is the base, and multiply it times itself 4 times. So that ends up to be 81 when you multiply it out. Sometimes people get confused and they take 3 to the 4th and try to make the answer 12. It's not 12, it's 81. 12 to the 2nd means 12 times 12, which is 144. Not 12 times 2. Don't get confused. Exponents. Okay, let's evaluate these powers. When you have a negative on something that's going to be involved with a power, you have to be very, very careful. Notice the difference. This one has parentheses, this one doesn't. This one doesn't. The one with parentheses means -8 times -8. The parentheses are showing you the negative goes with it. Well, a negative times a negative is a positive, and 8 times 8 is 64. So that's the answer to that. Now, on this one, where the negative is not attached, there's no parentheses with the negative, is what I mean to say. It's very different. This one means negative, and then it means 2 times 2 times 2. The exponent only goes with the 2. It has to have parentheses to go with the whole thing. So you go, well, 2 times 2 times 2, that's 8, 8, and slap a negative on it because it's got a negative. So that's -8. Let's try this one. -2 to the 4th. Well, that means negative sign, 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, that's 16, and it's got a negative sign. If this problem, the one with this one, had parentheses, what would be different? Let's see. If I had that in parentheses to the 4th power, that would mean -2 times -2 times -2 times -2, and that would be positive 16, because a negative times a negative is a positive. Times another negative is a negative. Times the last negative is positive. So the answer to that would be 16. It would be positive. So the parentheses matter a lot. Here's part 1 of video homework. Make sure you're writing in exponential form. Here's part 2 of video homework. Make sure you're evaluating. Now, you're also going to have some problems that just say evaluate. Then they give some values to plug in. We've had that before, but now there's exponents involved. You have to keep in mind order of operations. So, first thing to do is plug in all the values because it says x is 20. So we're going to put 20 in for x, and 4 in for y, and 2 in for z, and 4 for y, and that's actually a z right there, I just forgot to cross it, and so that's to the second power. So we just substituted all the values in for the letters. Now we have to do the math. So first of all, we're going to do this exponent, and that 4 squared is 16. So now we have 16 times 2, we still have a 4 and a 20 out here. Now we do the parentheses, that's 32. There's the 4, there's the 20. 4 times 32 is 128. So now we got 20 minus 128. And so the answer is negative 108. That's the answer. Many of you wanted so badly to do this first because it comes first in the problem, but it comes last in the order of operations. All this has to get simplified before you can subtract. Okay, let's talk about negative exponents. Yes, you can have a negative exponent. It's kind of a weird thing. You have to get rid of the negative exponent. You have to change it in some way, and you're not going to really understand this at first. You just have to learn how to do it. What you do when you have a negative exponent is you put it on the bottom of a fraction, change the negative exponent to positive, and put a 1 over it. So this means the same as that. Then I can easily tell that 10 to the second is 100, and I can get the answer. So 10 to the negative 2, you put 10 to the second on the bottom of a fraction. This 10 is going down here. That 2 becomes positive. That's what makes it positive. Your 1 is up here. Then you do the math and get 1/100. Let's do another one. 5 to the negative second, so put 5 on the bottom, change that negative 2 to positive 2, put 1 here, and that's 1/25 because 5 squared is 25. Okay, look at the next one, negative 2 to the negative 3. Put the negative 2 on the bottom of a fraction. Whoops, keep your parentheses, change it to positive. Put your 1 here. Negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 is negative 8. So you end up with negative 1/8 for your answer. Okay, let's try the next one. Take the 6, put it on the bottom of the fraction. Change the negative 4 to positive 4. Put your 1 over it. So 6 to the 4th power is actually 1,296. That's 1 over 1,296. That is what you do with negative exponents. Okay, you can actually have 0 as an exponent. 0, I think, as an exponent is really fun because everything, even negatives, let me include a negative example right here in the middle. Even negative exponents to the 0 power, you always get the same answer. 5 to the 0 is 1. B to the 0 is 1. Negative 7 to the 0 is 1. 69 to the 0 is 1. And this whole thing here, I don't even have to worry about multiplying and adding or doing any math because I'm seeing that 0. That whole thing is to the 0. The answer to that is to the 0. Well, the answer to that, anything to the 0 power, is going to be 1. So 0 exponents are pretty easy. Here's part 3 of video homework. Now let's sort of put all this together and see if we can evaluate a larger problem. So, when I look at this problem, the first thing I notice is this. This jumps out at me. -7 to the 0 power, that's just 1. So I'm going to go ahead and change that to 1. Then the next thing that jumps out at me is this. I can add those. 4 plus 2 is 6. So what I really have there is 6 to the -2 power. Now the next thing that jumps out at me on the next line is this. So I'm going to take care of that. 2 plus 1 minus, remember to get rid of a negative exponent to change it to positive, you put a fraction bar, put the 6 on the bottom, change the -2 to +2, and put a 1 up here. So now I have 2 plus 1 minus 1 over 6 squared. Well, 6 squared is 36. So that's 2 plus 1 minus 1 over 36. Now all I have left is adding and subtracting, so I can do that. 2 plus 1 is 3. So now I have 3 minus 1, 36. Well, I could turn it this way, and I could borrow and make this 36 over 36. That gives me 2 and 35, 36, and that's the answer. Let's do another one similar to that. By the way, don't let the brackets bother you. These are called brackets. They're just fancy parentheses. They use them when they have already a parenthesis in a problem, and they usually use brackets so that you can see which ones are which. It's just the same thing as a parenthesis. So, let's see. The first thing I need to do is take the -2 to the -1/3 and get that straightened out. Well, that's going to be, put the -2 down here, change that to a 3, put a 1 up here. Then everything else stays the same. That's still 15 minus, and this is still 16 minus, and there's still brackets. Okay, now what? Go ahead and do -2 to the 3rd power. That's -2 times -2 times -2, so that's -8. So 16 minus 15 minus 1 over -8. Okay, now my brain is going minus a negative is plus a positive, so I'm going to go ahead and change that so I don't have to deal with it. So now I have 16 minus, well, what's 15 plus 1/8? I think that's 15 and 1/8. Couldn't I just add those like that? So now all I have to do is go 16 minus 15 and 1/8. Well, let's borrow and change that 1 to 8/8. 8/8 minus 1/8 is 7/8. 15 minus 15 is nothing. There's the answer. Here's the last part of video homework. Have a great evening.